After my brother's death, my niece asked me to walk her down the aisle, but my wife threatened to leave me over a shocking secret she hid for 25 years. I, a 49-year-old man, have been married to my wife, a 48-year-old woman, for almost 25 years. We've been together since our freshman year of high school, and I always knew I was going to marry her. We even have a 24-year-old daughter. Like any other married couple, we've had our fair share of ups and downs, but it's mostly been ups. My wife is a very shy and sweet woman, and I really like that about her because I'm the same way. Recently, we got into a huge fight and she's been acting very strange since then. The thing we fought about was rather unusual, and I still can't imagine why she'd pick something like that to argue over. I have a niece who's just over a year younger than my own daughter. She's around 22 years old and is my older brother's daughter. My brother was 6 years older than me, and we were inseparable growing up despite the age gap. Unfortunately, my brother passed away 2 years ago in an accident. It was devastating for all of us, but life goes on, of course. My niece, my sister-in-law, and I were affected the most. For a year after his death, I would visit them every weekend with my daughter to make sure they were all right. I tried to get my wife to come along, but she always had some excuse, so I stopped trying. I didn't want to push her harder, because my wife said she didn't want to intrude on our grief, since she felt this loss was too personal. She also said that since she wasn't very close to my brother, she'd feel awkward and insincere trying to be part of something where she didn't fit in. I didn't think that was a good explanation, but I didn't push further. With time, my sister-in-law and I became even closer friends. I tried to provide my niece with the comfort she'd always received from her father, so she wouldn't feel alone. I felt awful for the poor girl because I have a daughter her age, and I couldn't even fathom how she'd feel if I suddenly stopped existing one day. So I tried my best to be there for her, and I think she started looking up to me as a father figure of sorts. A few days ago, she asked me to walk her down the aisle at her wedding, which is 3 weeks away. I'll be honest, I did think she might ask me, and I'd always thought I'd say yes because it would be an honor to walk her down the aisle. It's what my brother would have wanted. So I didn't think twice before saying yes, and I thought my wife would be just as happy about it because she seemed to like my niece too. For some reason, when I told my wife that I'd agreed to walk my niece down the aisle at her wedding, she completely flipped out at me. She started screaming, saying that this was supposed to be a sacred moment, meant only for a father and daughter, not an uncle and his niece. She said a lot of other things as well, implying that I was trying to replace my brother, which I thought was incredibly out of line. She even said that I was being selfish and hadn't considered how my own daughter would feel when she learned I'd agreed to walk my niece down the aisle. She claimed my daughter would feel awful if my first time walking someone down the aisle was with my niece and not her, which I don't think is true at all. It was really out of character for my wife to start screaming at me about something so strange, and I was caught off guard by her behavior. I was so shocked that I didn't even know how to react. I let her scream at me without trying to defend myself because I was hurt by what she'd said about me trying to replace my brother. After she was done, I went to the guest room and locked myself in for the next couple of hours. She didn't even try to talk to me or apologize, which made me feel even worse because I really didn't think any of this was my fault. If she disagreed with what I'd done, she could have tried to talk things through calmly instead of screaming and hurling accusations at me. To call it an overreaction would be an understatement. She did have a point about my daughter potentially feeling bad. My daughter and my niece are very close friends, and my daughter is supposed to be the maid of honor at the wedding. I hadn't considered how she might feel about me walking my niece down the aisle before her, despite their friendship. So I decided to ask her if she was okay with it. I called her an hour after the fight once I had calmed down, and told her about what my niece had asked. My daughter was thrilled and told me she was glad I'd said yes, even though I hadn't yet told her that I'd agreed. She then told me that my niece had already asked her if she'd be okay with me walking her down the aisle, and she'd obviously said yes because that's what my brother would have wanted. I was relieved to know that my daughter didn't have a problem with it, because it showed how close they were, just like my brother and me. Knowing that I'd cleared things up with my daughter, I knew there was nothing wrong with what I'd agreed to. My wife's reaction was completely baseless and very hurtful. So, I decided to confront her about it and give her a piece of my mind because she couldn't just yell at me without reason. At dinner, I told her about the conversation I'd had with my daughter and said that since my daughter was okay with it, I decided to go ahead with what I'd agreed to do. I also told her that her remark about me wanting to replace my brother was very insensitive, and I expected an apology for it. Instead of apologizing, she doubled down on what she'd already said, which was really shocking. At least she didn't scream at me the second time. We ended up getting into a heated argument, which ended with her saying she'd leave me if I walked my niece down the aisle. I literally had nothing to say to her after that, and we haven't spoken for 3 days now because neither of us is willing to admit they were wrong. I don't think there's anything wrong with me walking my niece down the aisle. And if my daughter doesn't mind, then I don't think my wife should have a problem with it either, mainly because her whole argument was based on it being a sacred moment meant only for a father and daughter. I don't believe that's true at all, which is why I'm not willing to budge. However, I also don't want to lose my wife over something like this. I really don't. I love my wife despite everything that's happened over the past 3 days. I've only loved her my entire life. And these few days have been the hardest to deal with. I don't know how she's doing it, and I don't even know how I'm doing it, but something needs to happen soon. I can't imagine a life without her, and I don't think I'd be happy if she actually left me. So, any and all advice or opinions are welcome right now. Am I the asshole for wanting to walk my niece down the aisle even though my wife is against it? Update 1. It's been 5 days since our big fight, and I still haven't spoken to her, nor has she spoken to me. We're living in the same house, but it's like there's an invisible barrier between us. If I enter the living room, she leaves, and vice versa. It sucks, and I know she feels bad about this as well. I heard her sobbing in the bedroom last night when I woke up to use the bathroom. It broke my heart, and I wanted to comfort her so badly, but I just couldn't. I didn't know how to. Sure, we've had fights before, but none as serious as this. It just sucks. I'm going to give it another day, and then I'll talk to her myself, because I can't stand this distance and bitterness anymore. I want us to be normal again. Update 2. Okay, so I planned to speak to my wife today, but she surprised me by waking me up with breakfast in bed. You can imagine how stunned I was by that after almost 6 whole days of not speaking to each other. I was already pretty drowsy since I'd just woken up, so it was hard enough to make sense of things. And on top of that, she threw me off by doing something like this even though we'd been fighting and ignoring each other for the past 5 days. Once again, I stayed silent while she talked to me while serving me. She apologized for the remark she'd made about me wanting to replace my brother, and said she really regretted saying it as soon as the words left her mouth. She didn't mean it, and had been so angry that she didn't think things through. When I asked her what exactly she'd been so mad about in the first place, she stiffened up a little, and it didn't go unnoticed. She told me that she would definitely tell me the reason, but she just didn't feel ready to share it with me yet. Clearly, she was embarrassed about the reason, but I didn't understand what it could have been that led to this degree of embarrassment. It must have been something pretty bad. While she hadn't told me exactly what it was yet, she promised she would tell me soon, just as soon as she feels ready, because she's been carrying this secret around for years. I'm really intrigued, and I even tried to persuade her to tell me, but she said she would and requested that I not pressure her, so I didn't push harder. It's been a good day, and I really don't want to ruin it by getting into another fight. I'm honestly just happy that my wife and I are speaking again because, like I said, she means the world to me, and I would hate to imagine life without her by my side. She apologized for threatening to leave me as well because even she admitted she'd be miserable and lost without me. We've been together for over 3 decades. That's a very long time. So, no matter what her reason is, I know I'll forgive her, and I can tell you for sure that she'd do the same for me. I know a lot of people won't be happy about what I'm saying right now, but I know my wife better than anyone else. I know it won't be some stupid, petty reason, and even if it is, I'll accept it. I just want to be with her for the rest of my life, come what may. That's all. Update 3. Hey folks. So, 2 days have passed since the last update, and today my wife finally told me the real reason she'd been so furious about my decision to walk my niece down the aisle. Man, I don't know where to start. I can't believe she'd been carrying this secret for over 25 years just to maintain peace within the family. It's literally insane. This wasn't even about my niece or my daughter in the first place. This was actually all about my sister-in-law. For context, my sister-in-law, my wife, and I went to the same high school. My wife and I had known each other since middle school and started dating in our freshman year. A few months after that, I think she became friends with my sister-in-law. My sister-in-law and I weren't particularly close, even though she and my wife were very good friends. She and I became friends only after she married my brother, as I've already said. She was only my wife's friend before that. They were close through college as well, and even at our wedding, my sister-in-law was a bridesmaid. In fact, that's where she first met my brother, but after our wedding, my wife started distancing herself from my sister-in-law. It was only because my brother started dating her a few months after our wedding that she and I were still involved in each other's lives. If my wife hadn't been friends with her, I don't think I would have kept in touch with her. She's a nice person, but we weren't close back then. My brother married her a year after I married my wife, and 2 years after my wife and I had our daughter, they had theirs. Naturally, Given how close my brother and I were, we often tried to organize playdates for our kids, but my wife never seemed interested in spending time with my brother and his family. We'd sometimes bicker about it as well. She'd always say she was too tired or too busy, but I could tell she was just making excuses to avoid hanging out with my brother and his family. So I just visited them without her. And she'd sulk about that as well. I couldn't help it. I needed a break sometimes, and even my daughter loved playing with her cousin. It wasn't as if we'd meet them every other day. It would just be once or twice every 2 weeks since they lived rather far. I didn't force her to come along since she clearly wasn't interested. So it would just be my brother, his wife, and me hanging out on the rare occasion that my wife did join us. She didn't talk much and would only speak to either me or my brother, or would be with the kids instead. No matter how much we tried to make both our wives feel included, it just never worked out. My brother and I tried several times to get them to tell us the reason behind their falling out, but both of them said the same thing, that they'd just grown apart, and it was awkward to be around each other now. But let's be real, that barely sounds like a genuine reason to completely start ignoring someone you used to be so close with. My sister-in-law hadn't even asked my wife to be her bridesmaid at her wedding, so we knew something was really off. I knew for a fact that something had happened around the time of our wedding, but then life happened. Our kids started growing up and our responsibilities increased as well, so we stopped seeing each other that often and stopped thinking about what had happened all those years ago. Today, I finally learned what led to the tension between my wife and my sister-in-law. Like I've said earlier, they used to be really good friends, but that ended around the time of our wedding. The reason was that 1 or 2 days before the wedding, when my wife and all her bridesmaids were having a little party just for themselves, my sister-in-law got blackout drunk and confessed that she'd been in love with me ever since sophomore year. She'd whispered it to my wife at the time and had even giggled about it after sharing her little secret. My wife said nothing because she was horrified. She tried to dismiss it as a meaningless drunken confession that wasn't even true, but the next day when she asked her about it, my sister-in-law admitted it was true but said she was never going to act on it, so there was no need to make a big deal out of it. My wife still let her be a bridesmaid because neither of them wanted to raise unnecessary questions. They didn't want the hassle of explaining why my wife had made her friend a bridesmaid who wasn't a bridesmaid anymore. Needless to say, things were never the same after that, and they pretty much stopped talking after that day. When my sister-in-law started dating my brother, my wife got insecure because she believed my sister-in-law was marrying into the family just to be close to me. She couldn't stand it. Unbeknownst to us, she and my sister-in-law even got into a nasty fight about this a few weeks before my brother's wedding. My wife had accused her of marrying my brother just to be near me, since nobody gets over someone they loved for so long in a couple of months, especially if the person they're marrying is 6 years older than them. My sister-in-law insisted she really loved my brother, and their marriage had nothing to do with the past. It didn't help that my brother and I looked similar. That fight pretty much ended any hope for reconciliation, and with time, the bitterness only grew. My wife never told me any of this because she didn't want to ruin my brother's marriage, since she wasn't even sure if my sister-in-law still had feelings. For me, it sure didn't feel like that to me, at least. And, I guess on some level. Even my wife thought that maybe my sister-in-law truly loved my brother. That's why she made up her mind to carry this secret to the grave no matter how insecure she felt whenever she saw me spending time with my sister-in-law. It all came to a head last week, when I told her about my decision to walk my niece down the aisle. She'd already been feeling insecure and jealous because I'd been visiting my sister-in-law after my brother's death. Unlike earlier, when it was my brother, my sister-in-law, and me, it was just me and her. The same old ugly feelings were coming back to the surface, and she didn't know what to do with them anymore. She suppressed them, just like she'd done earlier, but it wasn't as effective anymore. So when I came back home that day and told her I'd be walking my niece down the aisle, she lost it. She couldn't get the image of me, my sister-in-law, and my niece as one happy family out of her head, no matter how hard she tried. She couldn't even tell me the real reason she was acting out, which was even more frustrating for her. So she ended up saying a lot of things she shouldn't have. She knew I was assuming the responsibility that would have fallen to my brother out of love and respect for him, not because I suddenly reciprocated whatever feelings my sister-in-law had for me all those years ago. She just didn't know what to do with all these feelings that had been building up inside her for years and had resurfaced when she realized how my brother's passing had brought me and my sister-in-law closer together. That was the real reason she'd reacted the way she did. I must have been quiet for 10 whole minutes after she finished telling me everything, because what else could I have done? It was a lot to process at once, and I couldn't even fathom how my wife had kept all this to herself for the past 2 decades. I probably would have lost my mind, so I can't imagine the mental strength needed to do something like this. She didn't want to wreck my brother's home, and that's why she kept such a huge secret to herself all these years. I can't believe I'm married to this incredible woman who's always put other people's feelings before her own. When I thanked her for telling me the truth and for keeping this secret for so long, she broke down in my arms, and I was there for her while she let herself cry for the first time in ages. I'm so glad she finally told me everything, and like I said, I don't care what the reason was, I'd stay with her no matter what. It's been a few hours and we haven't spoken about it since or discussed it further. I think she's too emotionally drained right now, so I'll leave it for later. Update 4. Hey everyone. There's just a week left before my niece's wedding, and yes, I am still walking her down the aisle. Now that everything's out in the open, my wife told me she doesn't mind. She spent enough time with the girl herself and knows that my niece is a good kid. She deserves to have a father figure walk her down the aisle on her special day. And it's definitely what my brother would have wanted, so she's fine with it. As for my sister-in-law, we decided to let sleeping dogs lie. We're never going to bring up the past, at least not on our own. My wife trusts me and knows I would never do anything to hurt her. She apologized for what she'd said in that fit of rage, and now that I know the reason behind her anger, I know better than to hold that against her. She knows better than to hold my connection with my brother's family against me. I'm still going to help my sister-in-law and my niece whenever they need it, but that's about it. So, we're okay on that front. This secret is going to stay between us for the rest of our lives, and we know it's all for the best. We've also decided that my wife needs to seek therapy because she tends to bottle up her feelings until she snaps over something insignificant and small. She's almost 50 now, and I think it's about time we address this because I don't want her to suffer anymore. She needs to know that she doesn't always need to put on a brave face to take on the world and that she can be vulnerable, at least with me. I mean, she is sometimes, but that's only when things get too overwhelming. I want her to know that things don't need to get that bad before she tells me about her problems. She agrees with me as well, and I'm glad we're on the same page here. We're in this for the long run. As I sit here reflecting on everything that's unfolded over the past few weeks, I can't help but feel a whirlwind of emotions crashing over me like waves on a stormy sea. It's been an emotional roller coaster, one that has tested the very foundations of my marriage, my family ties, and my sense of self. Where do I even begin? Maybe with the love I have for my wife, the woman who's been my rock for over 3 decades. We've shared so much, laughter in our high school days, the nervous excitement of our wedding, the joy of raising our daughter, and now, navigating the complexities of grief and hidden truths. But this recent conflict? It shook me to my core. When she first exploded at me about walking my niece down the aisle, I felt blindsided, hurt, and confused. Her words cut deep, accusing me of trying to replace my brother. That stung more than anything because my brother, God, I miss him every single day. His death 2 years ago left a void that's impossible to fill. He was my best friend, the one who taught me how to throw a baseball, how to stand up for myself, and how to be a good man. Losing him in that accident was like losing a part of my soul. I still wake up some nights expecting a call from him, sharing a joke or planning our next family gathering. Walking my niece down the aisle isn't about replacement, it's about honoring his memory, stepping in where he can't. It's what he would have wanted, for his daughter to feel loved and supported on her big day. Thinking about that brings tears to my eyes even now. My niece, that sweet girl who's grown into such a strong young woman despite her loss, asking me to do this. It filled me with a profound sense of purpose and pride. But mixed with that is guilt. Guilt that I'm here and he's not. Guilt that my actions sparked such pain in my wife. Speaking of my wife, oh man, the emotions there are a tangled mess. I love her fiercely, unconditionally. She's the shy, sweet girl I fell for in freshman year, the one who blushed when I asked her to the school dance. Over the years, she's been my partner in every sense, through job losses, parenting challenges, and the everyday mundanities that make life real. But seeing her so angry, so out of character, screaming and threatening to leave, it terrified me. For 3 days, we didn't speak, and each silent meal, each avoided glance, felt like a knife twisting in my gut. I felt rejected, unloved, and utterly alone in our own home. Hearing her sob in the bedroom that night, it broke something inside me. I wanted to rush in, hold her, tell her everything would be okay. But pride and hurt held me back. How could she doubt me like that? Yet, as the days dragged on, anger gave way to worry. Was there something deeper? Something I was missing? When she finally brought me breakfast in bed, apologizing with tears in her eyes, relief washed over me like a warm blanket. We were talking again, connecting, but her hesitation to reveal the full truth left me anxious, intrigued, and a bit frustrated. What secret could be so big that she'd carried it for 25 years? The weight was agonizing, filled with what-ifs that kept me up at night. Would it change everything? Would I see her differently? When she finally opened up about my sister-in-law's confession all those years ago, I was stunned into silence. 10 minutes, she said. I sat there quiet, but it felt like hours as my mind raced. Shock was the first emotion. How had I never noticed? My sister-in-law in love with me? It seemed absurd. We'd barely been friends back then. But then empathy flooded in for my wife, imagining her at that pre-wedding party, hearing those words whispered in a drunken giggle. It must have shattered her. She was horrified, as she put it, yet she pushed it down, let the wedding proceed without drama. That's my wife, always putting others first, bottling up her insecurities to keep the peace. For over 2 decades, she watched me grow closer to my brother's family, visiting without her, organizing playdates she avoided. Each time, that jealousy and insecurity simmered beneath the surface, unspoken. No wonder she made excuses. No wonder she sulked when I went alone. She was protecting my brother's marriage, our family harmony, at the cost of her own emotional well-being. Realizing that filled me with awe and admiration. What strength, what selflessness, but also sorrow. Deep, aching sorrow that she'd suffered in silence for so long. I held her as she cried, feeling her body shake with years of pent-up pain. In that moment, my love for her deepened. She's not just my wife, she's a hero in her quiet way. Yet there's a tinge of regret, too. Why didn't I push harder to understand her distance from my sister-in-law? Why did I accept we grew apart as an excuse? I could have been there for her sooner, shared the burden. As for my sister-in-law, emotions there are complicated. Gratitude for being a good mother to my niece, for welcoming me into their home after my brother's death. But now, knowing about her past feelings, it's awkward, unsettling. I don't think she still harbors them. Our interactions have always been platonic, familial. She loved my brother deeply. That much was clear in their marriage. Still, it casts a shadow, makes me question innocent moments. Did she marry him to stay close to me as my wife feared? I doubt it, but the seed of doubt is planted. I feel a mix of pity and frustration toward her for that drunken confession. It changed everything without her even realizing the full impact. But we've decided to let it lie, not confront her. Stirring up the past would only hurt more people, especially my niece right before her wedding. That brings me joy amid the turmoil. The wedding is just a week away, and I'm still walking her down the aisle. Excitement bubbles up when I think about it, seeing her in her dress. That radiant smile, knowing I'm helping make her day special. My daughter being maid of honor, thrilled about it all. It warms my heart, reminds me of the bonds that endure. Therapy for my wife? That's a step forward that fills me with hope. She's almost 50, and it's time she learns it's okay to be vulnerable, to not always be the strong one. I want her to share her burdens with me before they explode. We've been through so much, and this ordeal has shown me how resilient our love is. No matter the secrets or fights, I'd choose her every time. Come what may, she's my world. These reflections leave me exhausted, but grateful. Grateful for clarity, for forgiveness, for the chance to grow closer. Life's too short for grudges. My brother's death taught me that. So, here's to moving forward, cherishing every moment with the people I love.